there's no Judge Evie. It's just me. It's just Judge James. Look at that. It's the perfect night, right? It's gonna be a nice and quiet evening, and no screaming and no yelling, and just nice and quiet. So yeah, welcome to Living for Crits. Judge Evie can't be here tonight. She's doing tween stuff. Although I think if she heard me call her a tween, I'd be in a lot of trouble. But I'm gonna stand by it. I'm gonna stand by the tween stuff comment. I'm gonna live and die with that one. So my throat's killing me here. So just partaking in something to make it hurt less. All right. Well, let's talk about work this week because I didn't do any gaming because I've been working. Hurricane Ida came through Philly, and that was fun. Our house and stuff is cool, but a lot of my clients aren't doing so hot. So my company's been very busy, especially the last few days. Kind of ruined my D&D game yesterday, but for a good reason. I had to end the game a few minutes in because I got called in to go do stuff. There's still buildings with a lot of water in their basements and on their first floors. So, and water damage and stuff. So no gaming to talk about. So we're gonna go right into Judge James Presides. That's the new part of the show where I answer the questions that we know Judge Evie's not gonna answer anyway. So what's the point, right? All right. So first question. Look at this. And if Judge Evie's watching, haha. This is from Devin Preston. Any thoughts on timekeeping? Specifically curious if you ever use things like dungeon turns or having torches go out after so much time. Partly curious because the MCC rules talk about artifact checks taking 3 turns. I'm wondering, does anyone use this? No. I don't. I do and I don't. I eyeball it. That's how I always have done turns. So if a player says they're going to lay a torch, I ask, do they have a torch? And if they do, I'm usually not tracking it, that much. I know that in old D&D, you're supposed to track turns like rounds, right? In a traditional dungeon crawl. I think I remember reading that when I was kind of prepping or reading into the Borderlands. But I don't remember ever really going into too much detail. I know it comes to my mind when characters have spells or abilities that have a duration, and I just get reminded, oh, it's been a half hour, that's out. So that kind of works. Hey, what's up? Look at that. Look at that. Dev's he's here. He's like, now I'm on the spot because I'm answering his question. Happy Sunday. But yeah, so it kind of is like one of those things where I just remember it. Like, I think of it like the way my son, how I remember it's bedtime. Like, I'll forget he's up until he asks me for something. And then when he asks me for something, I'm like, isn't it bedtime? It's the same way with, like, artifacts that last 3 turns. Players like, hey, I'm going to use this nano cloak. And then he just used it like an hour before in the game. I'm like, hasn't it been 30 minutes? And I'm like, oh, yeah, it has been. I'm like, you better use another C-cell or something. What's up, Midnight Green 004? So yeah, so I mean, I think it's something players or GM should do, spend more time with and should track if they want to have that dungeon crawling experience. Like the whole idea of tracking gear and equipment and torches and lighting can be fun, even with all the minutia. So long as at the outset you tell the players what you're getting into. Like if you've never tracked torches or time duration of stuff, and you just throw it at your players, and they haven't prepared for it, they're gonna be pretty ticked off. So don't just throw it at your players. Think about it first. Okay. Next question here. Ooh. This one is coming all the way from a land down under from Brian. Happy September. It's already spring in Australia as they start seasons on the first day of the month. That's odd. So now it's spring, but it already feels more like summer. Fun fact I should note, I have to kick up and boot up my Animal Crossing game because my Animal Crossing game is a Southern Hemisphere Animal Crossing save file, We did that because when we got Animal Crossing in March or April of 2020, beginning of the pandemic, we got like 4 copies of it for the house for all 4 of our Switches. I all the rest of the kids were doing it, starting with it would be spring in their worlds, and for me, I made it winter. Of course, I've only played Animal Crossing in the summer for some reason. I've not actually played it in the winter, like our winter. So I've always played it where it's winter because I only play it in the summer. Never mind. Let me get back on point here to the question here. Question selected from a random table. All right, Brian, here we go. What RPG system games surprised you in a good way the most when you first played it? I'm going to say Shadow of the Demon Lord. That's going to be the one that most surprised me. And it kind of is on topic for tonight, because tonight's topic, if you don't know, are the irksome things I'm running up against in D&D 5th edition. One of the things is I'm just not finding it as intuitive as I'd like. And with Shadow of the Demon Lord, DCC was easy to kind of like roll into because I've been playing so many D20 games over the years. But Demon Lord's a bit different. You don't have, it's not quite the same system mechanically as D&D. You're still rolling a D20, but then you're adding or subtracting a boon or a bane. And you get so many boons or banes to roll based on, how many advantages you have versus disadvantages. That was creepy. Whatever. I was surprised at how quickly that system became like easy for me to run. Like I was winging it within like the 3rd session, and I felt real comfortable with it. So that game surprised me in a really good way, to the point that I still would, if you want to play a fantasy RPG and you want to have more options than what DCC or an old school game is going to provide you, I would still point everyone to Demon Lord. At this point, 4 sessions into running 5e, way before I'd recommend 5e. So, good question. Question 2. Oh, hey, Tom. Tom Oftentimes Rose is on. I love the Oftentimes Rose part of Tom's name, by the way, just because I think it's the coolest band ever. How do you approach discussing potentially sensitive or uncomfortable topics with your group when starting a session or campaign like a session 0? I'm particularly interested in hearing how you discuss this with teenagers as to what they should expect in terms of content, how to exercise any discomfort, and what topics will not be tolerated. That's a really good question. And I gotta say it, teens are the absolute hardest, in my opinion, to regulate uncomfortable topics. First off, often, if they're not my kids, I'm going to stay away from as much uncomfortable as possible. I have used the Monty Cook Games consent in gaming form for doing some horror stuff with the teens, but I still wasn't comfortable with it, even with what they were comfortable with, because I still think young players don't know what they're uncomfortable with. Let me say that again. I think they know what they're uncomfortable with, but I think there's a lot of things that they don't realize they're uncomfortable with. I'm not saying that in a point of like, well, they don't know what they don't like. I think they know what they don't like. I think there's more they don't like they don't realize. So that's how I'm trying to say that. Like, I don't want to discount what a teen thinks that bothers them. I think they're very aware of what bothers them. I really think there's a lot more that's going to bother them that they haven't been exposed to yet. I don't want to be that exposure. I don't want to give them a time at the table where we discuss a topic that might be on the edge. So really ditch the edge unless you really know the players. So in general, as things that aren't going to be tolerated, I have to nip those in the bud when they occur, because when young players kind of get on a roll and they're really like jumping on a topic, and I don't want to be discussing that topic at the table, I have to just tell them, hey guys and gals and everyone, this topic really does not belong at the table. Let's shut it down. Let's move on. Let's refocus. I have no problem stepping away from the game for a minute and coming out of game master headspace and turning into parent, and having to do that. It happens, right? So that's my take on uncomfortable topics. Bonus question, Ted Lasso based, because gaming is life. What character classes in 5e or DCC would you give each of the Diamond Dogs? Um, and then looking forward to hosting an in-person Walls Dungeon Tavern Road Crew event in Brisbane in 2023 or 2024 or 2025. I definitely want to come to Australia. So a lot of great folks I know in Australia I'd like to link up with. Many native Aussies as well. So, all right, let's deal with this here. I'm going to do DCC classes because like today's the day I'm not crushing so hard on 5e, all right? So if you don't know, the Diamond Dogs are 4 of the characters. I don't think that I don't think Roy's been inducted into the Diamond Dogs yet, right? So right now it's still Higgins, Nathan, Coach Beard, and Ted. Um, so I'm gonna give him DCC classes. Coach Beard is a dwarf. I mean, is it that hard? He's a dwarf with a high intelligence, mind you, because chess playing dwarf. Higgins, I think Higgins is really there to help everyone and just to be a really great time. Deb says Beard's a Plantian. I like that. Um, so Higgins is there to like just to assist people. He's always there helping out. I'm gonna say Higgins is a cleric. Nathan's a wizard, especially in with the whole Wonder Kid thing, right? But especially in the last episode, he's a little full of himself, I think. So I think Nathan's definitely a wizard because wizards, as they get more powerful, become a bit more full of themselves, right? And then Ted Lasso's a halfling. I mean, it's easy. That's just easy. He's a little luck battery. Doesn't know much at what's going on in the sport, but the luck is rubbing off on him. He's really positive. So I would say Ted Lasso is a high personality, high luck halfling. Maybe tall, maybe a dire halfling. So that is how I would stat the Diamond Dogs. And Roy Kent is a multi-class warrior, wizard, thief cleric because Roy Kent is the ultimate character, level 10s across the board. Or he's a god. Let's just make him a god. Yeah, all right. Well, if you want to send more questions great questions, Brian and Deb, thank you so much. If you want to send more questions our way, you can send to dccjudgeevie@gmail.com. I didn't think I'd have any questions tonight to the email because Evie's not here, but she sent them to me from her friend's house. All right. A little controversial this week. Yesterday was going to be my 5th game of D&D 5e. It's not like I quit yesterday or anything like that. The game didn't happen because of work, and I had to end the game as soon as we booted up. I had uploaded the map into Owlbear Rodeo and everything, and I was getting ready to start playing, and the work calls just kept coming, and I was like, I gotta put this on break. So. With that, I've been sick all week. Last Sunday I was getting sick, and I've been sick like the entirety of the week. So I am like, it's not COVID. I feel like whenever I'm sick online, I'm like, it's not COVID. And I had to take the test. But man, I cannot. I'm really struggling not to just go into a coughing fit right now. It started as a sinus thing, and then just moved into my chest. And I know it's not COVID because I was tested, so it's not like I'm just saying it's not COVID. Anyway, so specific game yesterday didn't, but I had done some extra prep this week. I spent some more time going through the player's handbook for 5e and going through what I really do think now is the most god-awful 5e book, the Dungeon Master's Guide. I think it's pretty terrible. I'm just going to come out and say it now. The meat inside of it's not bad. It's just laid out in such a terrible manner that it's inaccessible. So I was going through this stuff and just trying to catch myself up on some of the rules that I've been flubbing or mixing up in the last few weeks, and just trying to understand the classes more. And while I was doing this, I was like, this is going to be a topic because there are some speed bumps I'm hitting with 5e, and if you go to our Twitter account at I Live for Crits, or if you just look below, because I have that app or that add-on where you can look below and just see, like in Twitch, the meme I did, because I love anything with Vin Diesel. I love it because I really love Vin Diesel, and I really, really love Fast and the Furious. So it's a very accurate meme that I made tonight about like dealing with 5e and my challenges with it, and the rules, and all of the subsystems and stuff that exist in 5e, which I know were there in 4th edition, but I had not been awakened yet to other games really. So with 4e, that was what I played. So I didn't know what else was out there. So I'm gonna talk the speed bumps tonight and things that are like hiccups for me. I'd love to hear back from you all, either in the chat or email us at dccjudgeev@gmail.com, or tweet me at I Live for Crits as we go through this. Off the bat, and something I'm having a challenge with is character class complexity. We have 5 characters in our group. We have a Minotaur Barbarian. We have a human Warlock. It's really, really cool. I mean, my friend Paul's Warlock is a really Widgery is a really good time. Totally weird build. I love it. It's like a blade pack thing going on there, or an infernal pack with a blade that can create weapons and stuff. Really cool. Very defensive. Very like if you hurt him, he does horrible things to you, kind of thing. I like that. It's really cool. I've got a Latorian monk. Latorian is the lion man ancestry out of Talus. We have a dwarf wizard, and we have a half-elf cleric. And I'm having a hard time trying to understand or keep track of what every class can do. There's so many options, and there's so many systems and there's so many things a character can do on their turn. So I'm often, when the wizard is casting something and then doing something else that's arcane, and then moving and discussing, well, I have this is this action, this is free, and I lose track of what's, I keep interrupting. Like, okay, I'm gonna do this. I'm not done. Oh, okay, I didn't realize you're not done. So there's a complexity to this, and I've tried making a few sample characters, and not to say I'm always looking for the optimal build, but I get a challenge looking for how would I build a character in this game that would feel right at the table. I'm sure there are power builds. I don't know what they are. I don't think any of my players have built a power build, but like something that's really OP. But I just, a lot of those systems with the characters, a lot of the ways the spells work with them, it just seems it's intense. It's a lot. Whereas I'm used to things that are much more straightforward. And I really have to scale things on, what my 2 favorite games are, which I still do put a lot of weight between DCC, which is, I still think hands down the best game of all time, and then Shadow of the Demon Lord, which I think is a really close there. I just think DCC has better adventures, but Demon Lord is a really awesome system. And I look at them as being, if I want to have something that is super fun and playable, real easy to pick up on a whim, and it's just right to the action, DCC with great modules, DCC is there. If you want some extra character customization, you want good adventures available, but you also want to be able to have a real weird medley of character ancestries and stuff, then I think that Demon Lord covers you there. Both of which I think are very intuitive. I don't think the classes in 5e feel that intuitive. I feel there's a lot that they can do, and more than I can keep track of maybe as a GM. So that's a challenge. Some of the economies as a GM I have to keep track of, I have a hard time with. The short rest economy is weird. So I know the Warlock and the Monk and the party recharge things with a short rest. Everyone can recharge hit points with a short rest, or so many hit dice of hit points, and I have to be giving them moments to heal. I don't like that kind of like micro gaming, like, or whatever you want to call it, like having to keep track of that. I feel it kind of blocks some of the flow of the game. And for me, that's where I start to lose me. Whenever I feel like I'm not able to just craft and create. Like when I'm running a game, I like to move on a dime. very quickly. I like to move the story and move the action. I like to really be able to move the game around and just spitball and just shoot from the hip as we're playing, and trying to do all that while making sure there's that I'm giving the players enough time to rest and do things like that. That could be challenging. Also, in terms of doing all that, is understanding, there's still a lot of 4E in this game. And there's more 4th edition in this game than I realized. And maybe it's some 3rd edition also in there, but I didn't remember it in 3rd edition. But, we have characters that really it's important to know what's going on around them. So you really need to have there be a virtual tabletop. And I've done a couple combats without it, but things get very messy without it. But with it, it really slows down the ability to move on a dime. And while I think the combat is very interesting, I think that I feel like when I'm running 5th edition, I'm losing some of the story. When I ran 4th edition, I talked about having run 4th edition for 3+ years, and I did. I ran 30 levels of 4th edition, and for me, it was the perfect game at the time. Why? Because I was in grad school for like 2 years of that, and I did not have time to write really interesting adventures. I had time to write some plot, and most of what I wrote, but I filled I filled it with encounters that I would pluck from other places, already balanced encounters. I had Dungeon Delve, huge help for me. Dungeon Delve and Open Grave, those books gave you encounters for certain levels. I would pluck those encounters out and plop them in to the game. I'd have a pre-built, this is a great encounter for 2nd level characters or 12th level characters or 19th level characters. And I would use those encounters and reskin a couple things. I don't have all those. I don't think there's many tools for that for 5th edition, or if there are, I haven't bought them yet, and I've kind of paused all the buying of the 5e stuff at the moment. I bought quite a bit to start. But I don't feel like there's that same support on the encounters. I think it's easier to build them yourself. And there is the encounter builder I tinkered with last week online. But when a combat with like 5 shark people takes an hour, I was trying to figure out, is this an upside or a downside to the system? It's the upside in that the combat was very, very unique and interesting. It was a very, very interesting combat. But a full hour of the game was taken up in combat. And my first impression of that was, well, that was kind of fun. I haven't done a 4E game in a while. So that was kind of fun to see every character doing their things. I don't know if I want to run weeks and weeks and weeks of that, though. Like, I don't know if I want to run lots of adventure. I want to do more exploration. I think you lose some of that when you're spending a lot of time in combat. I know this is a common complaint with so many RPGs. And look, DCC can get sucked up in just the same way. But DCC doesn't have the same, you aren't stuck to the same constraints. Monsters and Treasure. I don't understand still how the balance is supposed to work in this game. I know there are people that say, F balance, don't worry about balance. Fine, don't if you don't want to. But we almost knocked out the party's monk in like the first round. I had a lot of crits on that monk, but in the first round of combat with the shark people. But I don't understand, like, or how to figure out how much treasure to give out to people. What should I give out? How loaded should I make them? Do I need to worry about it at all? Is it something I need to be thinking about? And the monster encounters is hard to figure out too. Now look, again, people say balance is crap. Don't balance encounters. Every GM balances encounters. All right, we all do it. All you suckers do it. If you say you don't do it, that you're effing lying. You may balance it in your own way, but you show me someone and says, I don't balance encounters. Okay, like you aren't gonna put like a gold dragon in the first the first scene against a party of first level characters. You're not going to do that. So somewhere between really, 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 balanced games like a 4E game, and am I going to throw a Tarrasque against a zero level group of characters? There exists where you are in this spectrum of balance. Now, you may be really, really, really close to the I don't like to think about it too much level of balance. Or you may be closer to the I want to know what's going to knock out my party. For DCC, for instance, what I like to do when it comes to balance is if I'm going to have multiple characters, I want to have multiple opponents. I like to have the opponents be somewhat less hit points than the characters have each. And if the monsters are wanted the comic go quickly, I may beef up their damage and their ability output, but squash their hit points so they can be killed in one shot. I kind of miss minions, that's what I'm using. I'm using minions essentially from D&D 4E, but with a few more hit points. So I want to have a bunch of those. If it's a creature like a dragon or something, I want to have multiple attacks so it's not just squashed in one round. In every role-playing game, the big bad, unless it's getting multiple attacks per round, they're going to die pretty quick. But, I mean, I'll get some comments here. So Tom Oftentimes Rose says, Judge James calls out the entire OSR community. Yeah, I'm calling out the entire OSR community. I am. So suck it, OSR community. We know where we stand. Balance this, Gordon says. And Tom says, I say I don't care about balances, but I lie to my players all the time, so one more doesn't matter, right? Here's the thing. When it comes to balance, I truly believe that every GM that's worth their salt should be considering what the potential outcome of the encounter is they are putting into a module, okay? Having written a few modules for publication, only 2 of which have seen the light of day at this point and been published, and a few others are in some version of they've been play tested, but they died on the vine. So I'm not any big time writer, but I have written a lot of adventures that I have just kept in house. When I play test stuff, I don't want the killer encounter, and this goes for DCC too. I don't want the killer encounter to be something that happens in the hallway on the second level of a 3-level dungeon. All right. Do I want it to be some death? Maybe, depending on the game, but I don't want that to be the one that TPKs the party. If I'm writing something, and both modules that I published, one was for Numenera, one was for Savage Worlds, were written with convention length in mind. When I put those together, my thought was, let's make sure the characters get to the end of the module before anything really, really bad happens. And that's when the craziness occurs. Even my unofficial published module, when I wrote, X-Crawl, Dungeon Battle Delco, that was an adventure that I put together, knowing that at the end, when you're fighting with Gritty, that's the battle that's going to really take down the party. Other things happened before that. But with 5th edition, I think you do need to have more of a technical tracking system for this, because your player characters, it's a lot of resource management in this game. I think that resource management's back, and that's what I'm not used to. I'm used to a more mellowed out resource management system in DCC, where really everything is based on luck, because a character can a player can always burn luck to cast a spell they've lost. They can burn it once to cast a spell they've lost, or if they're a thief, they could spend it into their rolls or their damage. But really, to know how bad off a party is in DCC, a good judge keeps track of where the luck is of their characters, and that's when they know. if they're really screwing over their characters or not. That's when they know if where things stand that side of the table. It's not always the hit points. The luck is the more important tracker. Because I'll tell you what, if you're 2.5 hours into a con game and you've bled your party of all of their luck, I don't care how good of a judge you are, you're not going to have a good time. They're not going to have a good time in their rest of that adventure because DCC shines when you can do over the top, and you cannot do over the top if you've bled everyone of all of their luck. So I soapboxed a bit, I'm sorry. Tom oftentimes Rose asks, what was your Numenera adventure? I have the Savage Worlds one, not the Numenera one. It was actually out of one of the, I think the third or fourth Cyphercaster magazine. And it's called Metal Mike's Mercs. It was essentially it's a mashup of like Doctor Who and the movie Magic Mike. So if you like Doctor Who and you like Magic Mike, this is the perfect module for you. So, I mean, I don't know how else to say it. But I lost track of things here. Did I do that one on my YouTube show too? I don't think I did. Did I run that on you as an actual play? I don't think so. I may have run it for people on G Plus Hangouts, but I'm not sure I ran it as an actual play. I'll have to go look. I can't remember. I can't remember my Numenera days. Are you kidding? Anyway, we're going over here. So, all right, I think that's enough of me kind of crapping on 5e a bit today. I definitely felt like a little crapping was needed because I have hit some hiccups. I've had some issues in the last few weeks. I really am giving this game a really hard try. I really wanted to give it the all and not just for years have been kind of dumping on 5e a bit. A lot of it was shtick. I wanted to give it the true shot and say, how is it going? And as of right now, again, mixed feelings. So someone asked me this week where I'd rank it, like in terms of other games I play. I would still put 5th edition, considerably well below DCC or Demon Lord for me in terms of games I really love. Well below DCC. And if I was to ask right now, would I pick up 5e for my next campaign? Probably not. I would not run another. I wouldn't do it consecutively. That's for sure. So I gotta say, sometimes when I'm running 5e in the last 2 games, not the first 2, and it's nothing to do with the players. It just has to do with me running it. Sometimes I feel like this would be easier if I was running something different. Like the story I want to tell, I feel a little stifled. So we'll leave it there. All right. So Kickstarter shoutouts. There is a Mothership Kickstarter coming out, and that's one that I sort of snuck up on me because I have not played Mothership. I have the PDF for the player's guide, and I just haven't had a reason to play it. I will probably back the Kickstarter though, and I'm waiting for that just because I love that more neutral setting type of sci-fi material. I don't want a big backstory with a setting. I want just enough to fill my own details in, and I love sci-fi horror. Like space horror. So I love aliens. I absolutely adore Metroid. So the fact that there's a Mothership, Kickstarter coming out, along with Metroid Dread coming, which I'm really, really excited for, that's pretty cool. And then Road Crew shoutouts. If you don't know, this upcoming Saturday, so September 11th, there is the event registration to submit events for Empire the Cyclops Con, which is November 5th to 7th, and that you can go there and this. So if you don't know what you're running, start thinking about it. I will definitely be running things at Empire of the Cyclops Con. I'm really excited for it. Actually, I'm super excited for it. So because I loved Spawn of the Cyclops Con so much that right here, if you can't tell from the distance, that is Gather Town from Spawn of the Cyclops Con. I ordered for a buck. I got the handout sent to me from Goodman. That's just the picture of Gather Town, and I framed it because it's like one of my favorite things that's happened. Tom says Empire is the same time as a Catacon, so I'll be skipping that one. Why? You'd be skipping a catacon or Empire. Why would you skip Empire for a catacon? I mean, come on. You're skipping Empire for a catacon? Oh, that's weak. That is ultimate weakness. Such weakness. I'm very sad. First of all, you could probably do two. All right. At Catacon is your hometown. Yeah, but you don't want to go to Catacon in your hometown because Delta variant. I'm telling y'all, man. Ugh. No, I'm not going to kick you off the Discord server. You're fine. You're good. You're good. I still don't know what my comfort level is going to be for cons. I was really hoping that by PAX Unplugged, if there was going to be one, I'd feel better, but I'm not feeling so great for it. All right, so where to find us elsewhere? At I Live for Crits on Twitter and Living for Crits on. Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna cross that out. I'm not. Instagram is still there. I'm done messing with it. I tried Instagram, messed around with Instagram for I don't know how many weeks, playing around with it during the entirety of me doing the 37 days of daily vlogging, and I gotta say, I was Instagramming for the sake of Instagram. You know where I caught myself? I took a picture of like a leaf growing out of a pothole, or no, a manhole thing. And my wife and I were walking, and she's like, "You should hashtag that life finds a way." And I did it, and I realized I became that person. I swiftly stopped messing around with Instagram. So don't worry about Instagram. Not a thing. If you want to see what's going on in my world, go to Twitter, okay? That's really there's no need to go anywhere else. If I'm going to post a funny picture, believe me, it'll go on Twitter, okay? But yes, you have to see my rants on there too, and the political ones, and oh well. Yeah, so that's where to find us somewhere else. I just realized the finding us somewhere else thing is pretty limited. You can go to YouTube, though, and you can find our stuff there. So that said, be safe, be healthy, be kind. And for my outro ASMR, I've been watching a whole lot of Community this weekend because I've been kind of in a down mood. So I'm just going to say 6 seasons of a movie. Good night, everybody.